Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Lauren Schoenfeld, the Innovation Partnership. I see a few folks who already had the spiel on what WIP is, but I'm going to explain that quickly, and then we're going to have everybody else introduce themselves, and we'll jump into some questions. And so the Wyoming Innovation Partnership it started as a governor's initiative in 2021. And it is a higher education K-12 workforce collaborative to really ensure that we're meeting the workforce needs of business and industry across the state of Wyoming. So we have invested about $70 million into education programming. We're building a digital wallet partnership with Workforce Services and our WIP partners. We've worked with K-12 and the Department of Education to build out micro-credentials and have stood up a number of programs and processes across our higher education institutions in key industry areas. So energy, healthcare, manufacturing, entrepreneurship. So all of the areas that were really identified through the Endow process as being key areas of need in Wyoming is where we've worked across. So we transitioned the Wyoming Innovation Partnership out of the governor's office about 9 months ago and moved it over to the Wyoming Business Alliance, which is a 501c3 and C6. And so really ensuring that we are aligning closely with business and industry partners, engaging them in the conversations, and also looking at how we diversify our funding streams. So we are not utilizing state funding any longer. We have some additional funding streams that have come through, and we'll continue to do that. So we're looking at writing federal funding opportunities, as well as foundations and business investment. We have an announcement that will come out very soon from a very large business investment in multiple colleges to stand up some programming. And so that's something new for Wyoming. But really my point is we're working to coordinate this effort across the state of Wyoming. And I'm excited for this panel to kind of talk about what they're doing in this space. So will each of you introduce yourself? We can start with you.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Dale Porter. I'm the Dean of Workforce and Innovation at Gillette Community College. And what that is basically is I'm in charge of a few non-credit classes that have to do with the workforce.
Good afternoon, I'm Dr. Michelle Aldrich, and I have the honor and the privilege of overseeing career and technical education in Wyoming for kindergarten through grade 14, which is through the community colleges for the Department of Education. And we one of our duties is to oversee all of the permits funding, federal funding for career and technical education as well.
If I can share that one. I have two.
I just have a really booming voice. So hi everyone, I'm Laurel Ballard. I am the Executive Director of the Wyoming Community College Commission. Oh, I almost forget that. And I introduced myself, sorry. If you don't know who the commission is, we work with all of the community colleges. We're state agencies. State agency that provides coordination, support, advocacy for the community colleges.
So I want to kick it off with some educational alignment and really have you each talk about some successes that you've had with the work that you're doing within your institution and agencies, and how that worked in alignment with, some of the other partners across the state.
Well, it's probably one of the things that we do that's a little closer. So one of the things that we have that's somewhat unique here at Gillette Community College is, and if you were here from Gillette or you're used to Gillette, one of the things, one of the things that makes us somewhat unique is that we have a makerspace here at Gillette Community College, Area 59. And one of the things that we get to do with that is take fairly young children, right, from the early grades, right, and we introduce them to particular classes that's taught by Ellen, who's here with us today. And she puts together different teachers and so forth, and they bring them up in STEM and things like that. And they give them opportunities, right, to learn about different trades and so forth by the skill sets that they're using. So they do robotics and drones and things of this nature, and they build things and construct things. But the site itself also allows people to come in and prototype things, right? To look at different things that they might want to build or they want to construct. And some of that's towards crafts. But often other things are, you can prototype things for, I mean, they do everything from 3D printing engine boards, right, to making signage, this sort of thing. And again, they can experiment with that as they move through. So we take young children and we move them all the way through these programs year after year. And then they move up and then they get introduced to our tech center. Right? And so those goes into things like diesel mechanics, things like this, right? And welding, there's machining in there. There's some really great high-tech programs that are there that are credit-based. So those are going towards a degree, although there's also industry accreditation that goes along with that. And so a lot of people, such as welders and things like that, right? They'll come in to get particular certifications in particular types of welding, right? And then move on into industry. So, and then where I come in is that industry relationships, they can come to me and ask for specific types of training. So recently, we've been asked to stand up a few things that were surprising to me and one that was not. So they asked for heavy equipment operation. And so we're basically purchasing 2 smaller pieces of equipment at the moment. And we'll start short safety trainings and trainings with those for industry. And then also, as far as they ask, interestingly, for mental health training and also for financial responsibility training for their employees. And so those are quick stand-up things. And so as far as us integrating with them, it's pretty much, well, we offer this, hopefully this aligns with your industry. And also, what would you like us to develop? And we'll certainly work with you as a partner towards that.
Well, at the Wyoming Department of Education, we've had some pretty significant wins, and we have had the opportunity to align what we're doing around work-based learning with partners such as WIP and also with the Community College Commission, and there is just a lot of intention and a lot of focus right now on work-based learning. So taking those skills that students are learning in the classroom and actually being able to put those into action. Last year, we had a 99% pass rate, over 99% pass rate of industry recognized credentials that students earn while they're in high school. And those include things like a CDL license, an OSHA 10, an MSHA training, a CNA license. So all of those things that they can explore and earn while they're in high school. It will help them as they make their post-secondary decisions, whether that's to go on or whether that's to be in the workforce for a little while and then to go on to seek higher education. We also had a win with our graduation rate. The graduation rate in Wyoming right now is right around 81% for your average high school. We know that for our students who take 2 career technical education courses in 1 program of study and then graduate, that their graduation rate is 94%. So if we want to increase our graduation rate in Wyoming, the number one thing we could do is make sure that every student in Wyoming is taking 2 courses in a program of study of their choice that will lead them to a post-secondary opportunity after graduation. But we have the opportunity and are really fortunate to get to work with all of the community colleges, all of the folks at the University of Wyoming, a lot of us, the general business and industry associations like Wyoming Business Alliance, Association of General Contractors, and then amazing other nonprofit groups like WIP. So we really, I think we set at the, not only do we sit at the corner of I-25 and I-80 in Cheyenne, but we also really sit at the corner of opportunity and really what is going to be our Wyoming's future, which is working with our young people.
Well, that's quite a development. So, okay, so there's lots of coordination that has been going on across K-12 to higher ed, from community colleges to UW to the workforce. There's been so many opportunities. So, Laura and I both actually sit on the Workforce Development Council, and so, oh my gosh, we do, right? Anyone else that I missed? That was really loud, sorry. So we know, right, that the Workforce Development Council has the Next Gen sector partnerships working in many different communities that are focused on, where the industry folks from a specific industry connect together with their community, with the K-12, with the workforce, with lots of others, to come together to help solve the needs of those workforce sectors. And so we participate in those, as does the K-12 folks, to very much align the work that we're doing with the needs of the community, or the work that the colleges are doing that aligns to it. So there's that. We also have lots of coordination just going on between our colleges. So like, it happens at like lots of different levels of the community college system. So from the presidents and their VPs all, have their different groups that meet across the state with all the other colleges. We do that with the workforce folks. So those counterparts and things like that get together across the state to talk about what they're doing, and problem solve together for the different things that they work on and the needs of their community, so they can figure out how to do that. We've also done a lot of work. We actually work with the State Board of Education as well. And they've been doing the work with the profile of the graduate, which aligns with the work that Michelle was just talking about with work-based learning and the changing of the graduation standards for high school students that are connected to that. And so aligning some of that work as well. We do lots of work on transfer and making sure we've got seamless transfer from our community colleges to UW. We've been dealing with like common course numbering so that we make sure that classes transfer seamlessly between from the community colleges into UW. So, and then we also do a lot of work in coordination on dual and concurrent enrollment. So where the high school students are taking college level classes, and then being able to look at that. And we're continuing to, the legislature just expanded access by providing funding into the K-12 system to be able to pay for the post-secondary courses. And so there is lots of opportunity for additional dual and concurrent enrollment. We also have, everybody's got like the advisory boards, and the colleges have their advisory boards that very much inform the different areas of the college, so to make sure that the programs that they're offering remain relevant and aligned with the needs of the workforce and their folks in their industry. And then I'll just end on this one because there's so much. There's been a lot of work on CTE teachers, knowing that that is a huge issue. If we don't have CTE teachers, we can't teach CTE students. And then if they're not touching it in K-12, they're less likely to enroll in these classes in post-secondary, all of that. So there's been a huge partnership between the university. They've been working on they developed the Bachelor's of Applied Science for CTE teachers that, of course, Michelle is intimately involved and connected with. And so we have students that come through, get the CTE training in our community colleges, and then get the education training at the university. So lots of different opportunities for integration and alignment.
Thank you, guys. So now that we've talked about some of the really good things that are happening, I want to talk about some challenges and some barriers that we have. Because the number one thing, so at the Wyoming Business Alliance, we do a listening session, and we go to every community throughout the state annually. And so as we did these listening sessions, the number one issue for business and industry partners is workforce. And sometimes that's not having enough people, sometimes that's students. I mean, we know that Wyoming students are leaving the state at a higher rate here than any other state. And so, that's obviously a barrier. Housing, childcare, and wages are consistently cited as barriers to attracting and keeping Wyoming workers, especially in rural communities across Wyoming. So I want to ask the panel, whose responsibility do you think it is to solve these problems? Employers, government, or both? And what's actually working, and what have you seen that's actually working? I'm going to start with you, Michelle.
Great. Well, actually, I think it's all of our jobs to solve those issues. Or we could just blame it on those darn city councils. But I think that affordable housing, we've just had a perfect storm, quite honestly. We've had high interest rates. In our area, we have over 400 realtors working in the Cheyenne-Laramie County market. Most of those realtors, more than half of them, are only doing personal transactions. So a lot of times they're buying houses before they ever hit the market, especially those that are affordable and need some work done on them, where people might be able to get them for a lesser price and put in some sweat equity. We also have a lot of houses being purchased and being flipped for profit, for people that do that as part-time work. We also have a lot of houses being purchased that would normally be on that entry-level side and being turned into Airbnbs. In addition to an increased workforce, and in addition to COVID where people were reluctant to move, we just have a lot of elements around affordable housing. And what's affordable, quite honestly, in our community in Cheyenne, where the average home now, or entry-level home, actually they're calling it, is about $350,000. I don't know about you, but that is not an entry-level home from my perspective. So I think that there's been a lot of issues around affordable housing. Cheyenne is really fortunate that we've had some industry partners who have stepped in recently with some major donations in the millions of dollars to the community to purchase land in order to build affordable housing. But what we're seeing a lot of is apartment buildings built, which helps to relieve some of that stress, especially for those folks that are just getting out on their own. But unfortunately, a lot of times, renting an apartment at $1,800 a month for a one-bedroom apartment, which is the going market rate right now, or $2,300 for a two-bedroom, doesn't allow a lot of people an opportunity to save money for a down payment. So that's, I think, the housing scenario. Childcare is another issue where it just is high demand, but we don't see that it's paying enough, quite honestly, in order for people to be able to go into early childhood education and be able to make a living wage a lot of times, especially if that's their own sole income. So unfortunately, sometimes people will spend more money on their pets and animals than they will on paying childcare for their children. And so that's a supply and demand issue. But that, I mean, there are, as if we can find employers who will actually develop on-site childcare centers. Carbon County did that successfully, very, very successfully in the past. We also have a lot of employees that work shift work and work a 24-hour shift. And a lot of childcare centers just are not open overnight or for that 2 to 10 shift. So definitely some opportunities there, I think. And I guess the positive side of this, and I think there is a silver lining here, and that's that when we have students who are wanting to stay in their communities and maybe they want to own their own business, there are so many opportunities right now for our students to take what they're learning in our CTE classrooms and actually add some business skills to those and become entrepreneurs. If you are a childcare provider and you open a childcare center, there is an opportunity, depending upon your business acumen and the marketplace, to make that a really going concern and to make it a good opportunity to make a living. And we don't want our students just to make a living in Wyoming, we want them to make a life here. And I think that helping them to have those skills where they can turn those skills into a profitable small business or into their next educational opportunity is really our goal. But yeah, I think those issues depend on all of us, right? And we all have a piece of that, whether you're sitting in an elected official seat on a council or a county commission where you can change regulations to help allow more affordable housing to be built, or if you're sitting in an educational role and trying to make sure that students are educated so they can afford to live on their own and not in their parents' basement, or making sure that they have a plan for after high school, because we do a huge disservice to our students when they get to the end of their high school career after 12 years and we say, so what are you gonna do, after you graduate? And they're like, I don't know, I think I'm gonna hang out for a while and think about it. That's not an okay option, and most parents would not be okay with that option. So lots of opportunities, but the good news is that in Wyoming, we're pretty innovative, and I think we have the solutions amongst us to address these issues.
So I have to attack this sort of from a different position, and the fact is, what can we do, right, as far as a college? And so again, as far as we do not address directly recreation, and we don't really address the creative, what was the word I was looking for, creative, I'm sorry. Anyway, anyway, so the idea is there's particular things that we don't address, and there are some particular things that we can address as far as education. Really, that's our strong suit. As far as teaching either quick classes or long-term 2-year degrees, as far as associate's degrees, or basically passing those students on to a 4-year degree. So what can we do as far as making those things more affordable, more accessible, basically teaching the potential students, right, that are coming up what's available. And also, one of the things that community colleges do very well is allow for people to have a second career, all right, or change their mind, right? Not particularly happy in what I'm doing. I think I'm going to go off in a different direction, right? Well, as you were talking about earlier, one of those things is that we focus on sometimes for our classes is a return on investment. And of course, there's federal funding and things like that that are also starting to ask that question. How many students are you putting through? How much money are they making? And this sort of thing. So basic income right now nationally in Wyoming, okay, I know we're a little higher than John, but nationally, and that's being able to rent an apartment and pay for a used car, and that sort of thing is $48,300. All right, so that's your basic level income. You get much below that, you're going to have some issues with renting, or you're going to have a lot of roommates, one or the other. And so we think about that, right, as far as what we're training for and what kind of classes we're putting together, what kind of interests we have. But one of the things that we've learned is that oftentimes, while we certainly concentrate on the traditional student, we do concentrate quite a bit on the non-traditional student. And the fact is, the people that are already employed, right, can we basically move your employee out? What kind of training do you want within your industry, right, that we can add to? So they give us their students for a few days, right, and we give them particular training in the boot. And we already do this to some degree, right? So we teach MSHA, we teach OSHA now, that's coming our way. And so the mines, of course, give us a majority of their miners, right, for recertification and particular safety things and so forth. So we're somewhat familiar with this. And so putting new classes in, or classes that would advance them, that we can do and that we can be good at. As far as changing the economy itself, there are things within this town that we would like to be involved in. There are some people here who are doing pre-manufactured homes, right? If we go into construction and start teaching construction, which we've been asked to do, how are we going to look at that? Are we looking at that as traditional builds, or are we looking at something that's actually manufactured? And I'm not talking about trailer homes necessarily, right? We're talking about pre-manufactured homes that are built the same way, but in a lab type environment, right? So things are controlled. So those houses tend to go out similar and less expensive and that sort of thing. But there's things as far as housing costs, as far as legislation, as far as paperwork, that are almost 10% of a new home build. And no, that's not our ballpark. We're not going to play in that field. But as far as the education, as far as training people that can be better at those things and understand those things, absolutely, that we can do.
So I think to add to that is really, your question is whose responsibility is it? I'm 100% in agreement with Michelle. It's all of our responsibility. That I think that we all have to kind of figure out how to dive in and work towards that. I think one of the things that we hope to see is the development of career pathways, which we've been developing, and that's not new. But I think there's some opportunities to continue to refine and hone and to think about it from K-12 to post-secondary to community colleges for 2 years, so the 4-year, and kind of thinking through all of that and really kind of showing how there's on and off ramps as well as you go through that, right? I mean, maybe I'm somebody who wants to go through 4 years and maybe I'm not. Maybe I want to get my CDL in high school, and I will, go do some, work for a while, and then I realize, if I want the next step up, I've got to go to post-secondary, get some more certificates and whatever it is, heavy equipment operating, I don't know, right? Like those kinds of things. Yeah, right? And then I want to go back, and then maybe it's a 2-year, and then I decide, I've been working in an industry that's tough on my body and I can't keep doing that, and I'm ready for the next thing, and maybe that requires me to finish my 4-year degree so that I can get more of or add in the business and things like that Michelle was talking about. And so I think there's the opportunity for that. And I think those opportunities that we talked about, like the work-based learning and the earn while you learn type models, like apprenticeships, are going to be really important connected to that as well, right? The more we can connect students to industry and business and employers to see what's what, to learn what I want to do, to learn what I do not want to do. The earlier I learn that, the better, right? Like, and so that when I start making some of those connections, right, then I start going, it also makes connections for employers that are looking for good employees. And I have this great intern, and you can turn internships potentially into employment opportunities that exist in our communities. It'll take some work to really build on that. And I want to just kind of add to that then, right? Like part of what we're working on, and Lauren mentioned it very briefly in the opening, is the digital wallet that we've been working on. So it's owned by the Department of Workforce Services, but it's a whole big collaborative team working on this that looks at this, the development of a digital wallet. And what it does is it allows me as an individual to put in my degrees, my certifications, the skills I've learned along the way, so that I can make it really visible for folks. And then I can share that with employers easily and quickly in the way they're building the digital wallet. If I want to say, here are my skills, employers can say, here are the jobs I have opening, here are the competencies and skills I'm looking for, tell me who's got those, and then my information could be fed if I wanted to be to the employer, so that we can do the help with matching and things like that. And so as you talk about the opportunities to engage folks and hopefully keep them here, that is part of what that was designed to do, was to help us make it easier for employers to find people, make it easier for people who want to stay here to find jobs that align with the things that they want to do and the skills they have, and those kinds of things. So I'll start there.
So we've talked for years across the state of Wyoming about diversifying our economy. We rely heavily on the extraction industries, which has been great for Wyoming's bottom line, but there's upturns and downturns that come along with that. And I know Gillette is very familiar with that. I'm from Southwest Wyoming, also very familiar with that. And it impacts our state budgetary process consistently. So as we've looked at diversifying the economy, we also have changes at the national level that impact Wyoming. And now we have this awesome disruption of AI in the workplace and how we do business. So I want to get some insight on, how are we able to leverage transferable skills from our workforce, and how are we able to upskill and build on that? And I know, Dr. Porter, you talked already, that's the community college's job, is really to help with the upskilling and being very agile and responsive. But I think I'd love some insight from you all on that. And I'm gonna start with you, Laurel.
So you're going to Dr. Porter. Okay, so yeah, no, I mean, it's absolutely at the core of what the colleges do, right? And is to help take folks that are interested in retooling and retraining and to bringing in with the skills that they have. And we sometimes give them credit for classes for experience that they've already had, so they can get through the degrees and requirements faster. But we also take their tool, bring them in and provide the opportunities to earn certain new certifications to add on. We've been working on stackable credentials, right? So I may have, and so that they build on top of each other. And make me more employable, more valuable potentially to employers, because we've been able to do some of that. And so I think it's definitely a big piece of what the colleges do is be able to bring those folks in. The AI is an interesting one, right? We just did the AI sessions over in there, repeat. Right? I mean, we're all learning it at the same time. AI has kind of been around for a while, but it hasn't been accessible to everybody until relatively recent. And so there's a lot of work going on in AI, and that also is, even if I was incredibly skilled at what I do, jobs are changing. They look, or sorry, gonna start looking different. Not that my job's gonna go away, but my job is gonna look different, and how I do it is gonna be different, just like it changed when the internet came. I stopped going to the encyclopedia and started hitting the search engines and things like that, which is a fun challenge in the middle of college. That's when that happened for me. And so, so it's the same, to me, it's the same kind of thing. It'll be a change that we will all have to work through and figure out and support each other in terms of getting through and getting to use it, helping me figure out how to be more productive. I mean, for employers, having folks that you can be able to do more would be fantastic, right? Increase that productivity. So I'll pass it on.
Well, I think that for a long time in career and technical education, we've been training students for jobs that didn't even exist yet, right? So right now, if you ask teenagers across the country, what is the #1 job that you'd like to fill when you graduate from high school, their #1 response has been that they want to be social media influencers. Well, that's really helpful, but it's not going to really help diversify our economy. So I think that what we're seeing in K-12 education is it starts much earlier than community college. And Laurel pointed out that sometimes finding out what they don't want to do while they're in high school is really beneficial, especially before they invest time and money into maybe becoming a CNA and then getting into the CNA program and doing their clinical experience and deciding that they don't like body fluids. That's kind of a key element of being a CNA. So if you're not into body fluids and blood, you may want to rethink that opportunity. But we have really tried to take a lot of our legacy CTE programs in Wyoming and help bring them into the 21st century. We actually, in the last year, have had probably 6 to 8 high schools start CDL programs because there was a federal law change that allows 18-year-olds now to be able to drive with a commercial driver's license as long as they don't cross state lines. So if they're just delivering things in your community or they're working on a job site in your community, they can have a CDL and they can get that during their last year of high school usually, if their high school offers that. We have 5 or 6 schools across the state who have just started aeronautics and aviation programs. We've got a little high school up in northern Wyoming who is building a biplane right now as one of their aviation classes. We've got some kids in southwestern Wyoming that are learning how to become private pilots because their instructor is actually a pilot educator. We have a lot of students across Wyoming who have earned their Part 107A unmanned aircraft license so that they can do drone work in agriculture or in real estate or with the mining industry, with land mapping. So the jobs are changing. And the next iteration of those and those transferable skills are helping our students learn how to learn and know how to use AI as a tool, right? As we move this next year into the Willow chip, if you haven't heard about the Willow chip, it's really going to make the next move into quantum computing. And it's being put out by Google and it's expected to be out sometime this year. That's going to take it to a whole new level. We're talking about most industries like Banner Health, for instance, will have their own proprietary platform, and there will be a job that the only job there is to make sure that all the information that's on that proprietary platform is factual and it's correct information. So that when a doctor at Banner Health types in patient symptoms, the AI can, which a lot of times are called agents, would be able to ask, have you looked at this? Have you thought about this? Have you tried this? But in order for that AI agent to be able to ask those questions, somebody's got to be making sure that that information is correct. 10 years ago, we thought every kid needed to learn how to be a computer coder. Laurel and I think, gosh, it was about 10 years ago, we went to a coding class together at LCCC, a 2-week camp. I would rather gouge my eyes out than code. But coding is not for everybody, I'm just saying.
I liked it.
Yeah, she liked it, I didn't like it. I have to tell you that the number one job that's been replaced by AI is coders. Because AI can do coding so much faster and more quickly, and it can actually do it more accurately. So I think that will we get rid of all coders? Absolutely not. But not everybody's gonna have to know how to be a coder. So we need to be able to help our students be comfortable and familiar with those types of skills and those tools, but recognize that they are only tools. And that they also, that doesn't replace things like common sense. It doesn't replace things like showing up to work on time, not in your pajama pants. Knowing how to talk to people and give eye contact. Those are those employability skills that we hear from employers every day that they want to see and they want their students to have or their new employees to have. And they'll teach them the skills if we can just get them there with employability skills. So it starts long before they get into college. And in fact, it starts in that pre-K era where parents are walking through the grocery store and talking to their children about, oh, do you think you'd like to be a cashier when you grow up? This is what a cashier does. So that students become familiar, because unfortunately a lot of our students only know really after COVID, they all think their parents only go to Zoom meetings for work. But the other piece is that they're only familiar with the jobs they've seen. And so they may be familiar with mining because their dad works in a coal mine, and they may know that he drives heavy equipment, but they don't think about that there's somebody in the accounting office, there's somebody in human resources, there's somebody that's doing compliance and OSHA. There's lots of hidden jobs that we would call back of the house that our students aren't even aware of. So getting them even to be aware that those jobs exist is a huge piece of that in the K-12 arena.
So unfortunately, they've just thrown me a steak. So I'm fascinated by AI for a lot of reasons. And if I can tell just a little story of where this comes from, is that 10, almost 15 years ago, I was still teaching as a professor at a university, teaching construction management. And like a lot of professors at the university, we had our issues with cheating. And at that time, there was contract cheating, meaning that you could pay somebody to do everything from take your test to write your PhD.
That's entrepreneurial.
Yeah, right. And but the issue was that there was a site called Chegg, and Chegg eventually would buy one of the major college publishers, right? And this caused all sorts of trouble. And my boss and I at the time went rounds with their lawyers, talking to them about the issues that this was causing in the classroom. Humorously to me, AI put Chegg out of business, all right? And they were $1 million company. All right, but they put them out of business. And perhaps not for good reason. So I want you to understand that I understand the educational side of that and the concerns that AI brings to the common classroom. But I have to flip that for what I do, right? And I've seen AI integrate itself into common software used within the construction and manufacturing industry. So things that we would use only 5 years ago that were great products have now integrated AI. And so one of the larger ones that was used by a large company that my daughter now works for, Kiewit, it was a scheduling software, and I watched a person talk to its program and do what-if scenarios that 10 years ago you could not have afforded to do, and it was doing them in minutes, not weeks, not half a month, right? It was doing them in minutes. So safety-wise, as far as planning for long projects, asking the what-ifs, if I change my crew size, if I change my product, if I change my manufacturing process, all of these things can be done in seconds by assuming that the person that teaches it knows what they're doing, right? So our responsibility as far as educators, especially at the community college level, is still to teach pencil and paper. They must understand the processes at a very basic level before they trust a computer to do the thinking for them. However, when I was talking to industry the other day, I was talking to a gentleman who does home construction, and he was talking to me about estimates for the house. I told him, well, I said, I used to teach estimating, and I said, and I did the estimating to finish out my basement downstairs in about 5 minutes using a non-construction tool. And I knew enough to know that it was highly accurate. So he asked me, well, what construction software is there? And I went online and I found out about 5 ones that were construction specific. and they were brilliant and not particularly expensive. And I was like, okay, so now we've changed something that's been the backbone of quality construction planning for decades, and we've changed it overnight. And these things oftentimes are built into programs we've been using for a long time. So what can we do? So one, we can stand up quick trainings. Right? We can do your weekend trainings for things that are organizational software. One of the national ones that's really big is a software called Bluebeam. Right? And it's just a PDF holder and it links pages and things like that to get it quite well. But now there's an AI element that's added to it as far as it basically thinking through processes for you at lightning speed. So this is where we're trapped just a little bit, right? Is that we know that we have to teach the basics so that students can visualize things correctly. And so when they see a mistake, they can recognize it. This is very important. And our instructors know that. And they plan classes accordingly. But we still need our community partners, right? As far as feeding down to us going, okay, this changed, all right? Please pay attention to this changed. We need you to make these adjustments. That's great. But I think that they would also appreciate students coming up and they go, oh, what, you use the new AI model? Yeah, we'd like to see that. Right? So it's a two-way street. And as far as that sharing. And so those things are important to us, right? That we do our job and that we keep the communication gates open to industry. So we know what's going on in the real world, not just the hypothetical.
That led directly into my next question for the group as well. So the last thing that I want to talk about with this panel is talking about public-private partnerships. And I think we've seen a lot of success through the Wyoming Innovation Partnership, and I'm just going to use Western Wyoming Community College stood up a power line technology program there. And that program was led by a Next Gen Sector Partnership group within the community, and it also was partially invested in by that sector group. And so Rocky Mountain Power invested fairly significantly in the program. The Wyoming Innovation Partnership also invested in that program. And we were able to bring a faculty member. So that's part of the issue with many of these CTE programs is that faculty and staff are really hard to find and they're expensive in comparison to other sectors because they want to go out and work and they can make more money out in the field. And so we were able to find somebody who was close to retirement that moved here from Alaska to help stand up that program and build the curriculum in partnership with, again, some of our co-op electric groups and Rocky Mountain Power, bringing in equipment and transformers and poles for our students to learn how to climb. So we were able to stand up the first Power Line Tech program in the state of Wyoming. We were recruiting from Idaho and Montana and other private colleges there, private schools there. And the kids didn't necessarily want to stay in Wyoming. They came here for their first job and then they'd leave. And that's what we're trying to get away from. And so, you know, we've had a lot of successful stories from that cohort. They actually now have 2 cohorts in that space. And all of the students in the first graduating class, I haven't followed up since then, but all the students in the first graduating class went directly into Wyoming businesses to get hired. And so that's a huge success. And we also have another big, like I said, investment going to be coming forward from business and industry partners that are working with our colleges to figure out how do we stand up programs to meet our workforce needs and how do we partner with you to do that. So I'm going to turn it over to this group to talk about what they need and who they need around the table to make these public-private partnerships work. And if you have any success stories, I'd love to hear them. Who wants to start? Okay.
Well, we actually have an opportunity to work a lot with business and industry. And as we're moving into new arenas, it's really important to keep our educators informed and on the leading edge because they need to be able to teach their students what's up and coming, not what is and has been. So we actually, as an example of what Lauren's talking about, tomorrow we're having a meeting with all of the tech companies in southeastern Wyoming. Everybody from Meta to Microsoft to Google, along with northern Colorado, because the workforce, believe it or not, doesn't stop at the state line anymore. It's really become regionalized. And for those of you here in Gillette, you understand that because a lot of times you have people we have people that drive in to teach in Moorcroft and Upton areas that are coming in from Rapid City. And we have people coming down from Billings and people that go to Billings to work. And so we're having a southeastern Wyoming. It's going to be called First Tech, and it will be working with all of the data and tech center folks and all the technology companies in southeastern Wyoming and northern Colorado along the Front Range, looking to see what we can do with our students and with their help to train our students. We also have we've really started to draw and attract a lot of large corporate entities into Wyoming. For instance, with Microsoft, they've been in the Laramie County area since 2014, but they're expanding and they're making a lot of investments into our community college and Laramie County Community College, as is Google. We had an opportunity recently to meet with Google folks and about some of the programs that they're standing up and training programs to get people into their doors as an entry level at the data centers. And we've heard recently from a lot of those folks that started out, maybe they came to Wyoming and their intention was just to come and work for 2 or 3 years and leave, but they've decided to stay. If we can get students to do 3 years with a company, most likely they're going to stay because they develop that social network. And then they have that professional network and they don't want to leave that in order to go to another state. And if we can have those internships and opportunities for students in high school to build those types of professional relationships, the benefit for the employer is it's almost like a semester-long or a year-long interview, right? For the student, they're building that professional network and they're finding out whether that's the job they really want to do or not. So it's a win-win situation. What we really need from business and industry is the opportunities for our students. I know it takes extra time. I know that it can be a pain in the rear end. I used to teach high school. I know that they're not always the most productive or the most, the hardest working. That they're learning. And if many of you had a first-time job, you probably remember your first-time job. Mine was as a newspaper person. I can remember the first time I delivered the Cheyenne Frontier Days edition of the newspaper. I think some of my customers got their newspaper at 3 o'clock in the afternoon because the darn papers were so big back in the day. But we need your patience, we need the opportunities for students, whether that's at the high school level or at the college level. And we need some help from the legislature, quite honestly. We need to be able to say to our business and industry folks, we have legislation that will protect you and cover some of those concerns you have about liability when you are willing to take on a student for an internship or for an opportunity. And we need state government agencies to lead the way. We ask business and industry all the time to take on interns. And in my time in our department, we've had 3 interns that I can think of. Laurel had one, I had one. Remember you had one, John? Yeah. And then we have one currently. But we should be leading the way. And we really need leadership from the governor's office on down to say, hey, business and industry, we're gonna set the bar, and we're gonna recommend that everybody take on interns, and we're gonna model that. So it starts at the top, and it goes all the way through the system.
As far as those partnerships, I would like to point out, if I might, a change that's happened in probably the last 15 years with industry. And I have to speak from this really from the construction industry background, because that's kind of where I come from. So about 15 years ago, a lot of the larger industries decided that they were going to start training in-house. You know, the universities, and I taught construction management at the university, so I'm guilty. We do really well as far as theory, organization, laws, that sort of thing. Those students are great. But when it came to boots on the ground, understanding the technical, I'm sorry, that takes time, right? And it takes time in the field. And so for a lot of the universities, they wanted the impossible. They wanted somebody with 10 to 15 years of experience in the field and a doctorate. I can tell you those things don't necessarily go together. All right, and so they started kind of picking things apart, and they did a lot of in-house training. They did very good. But as time went on, they realized that a lot of their extremely talented staff and workers and leaders within their companies were getting ready to retire. Right? And COVID did have something to do with this, as far as a little hiccup there in the workforce. But nonetheless, as they went through, they were pulling their most senior experienced people out as their trainers. right? And so that meant that those people were not on the job site. They were in the classroom, or they were teaching students as far as moving up. And then as far as them retiring and moving out, okay, now we have a different type of workforce issue, right, as far as numbers. So yeah, we have new people coming in and they're great, right? And they're doing a good job, but they don't have 15 or sometimes what I've heard here, 40 years of experience, right? And there's a big difference there. So what we've now proposed is that when it comes to training particular trades and so forth, please let us, out of 6 companies that are doing roughly the same thing, please give us one person. Please give us one person, let them make our instructor, we'll pay them, all right? And we'll train your people across the board. Of course, nobody wants to do this because now we're just, sharing trade secrets, right? But as time goes on and people become, I don't use the word desperate, but more in tune to the needs of that employee, these things become fairly lucrative, right? The fact is that I can have somebody that's really experienced, not I think it's university trained, but nonetheless, somebody that's been in the field for quite a while can become those trainers. That's the type of relationship that we're talking about, right? So really, those people from those industries, we're not just interacting, they're embedded. They're embedded in the whole system as far as training, right? And because, again, of the changes in workforce and stuff, this becomes a necessity. So anytime I hear somebody in the industry say, oh, I'm retiring and such and such, my ears perk up, but I'm like, do you have a plan? Are you going fishing? Will you be back? All of these things. Yeah, right, exactly. And the other thing that we have to do, right, is as far as working with industry, right, and doing with it, is perhaps the strangest thing is change our schedule. And this for schools is not easy, right? It's not easy to get the instructors and so forth, but oftentimes it becomes necessary. People, school's expensive, let's face it, right? And there's funding, and I didn't talk about that. There's funding and things of this nature that are going on, and there's a lot of people that are willing to pay for your school if you shop around a bit. But nonetheless, it's expensive and it takes time. So people want to be working and going to school. And I know that television makes that sound like it's easy, but it's not, all right? And so it's our job, right, to basically make the adjustments to be able to help the student and to also make sure that the student that's passing through is of high value to the industry. So those relationships, those advisory councils, things of this nature, right? When they talk to us, we hope that they're blunt, right? And they usually are, as far as what they want and what they expect out of the student. Because then again, we can say, okay, is this just about teaching people how to interact with people, or is it teaching the skill set that happens to be focused on that particular trade? All of those questions matter to us, and all of those things adjust our curriculum and our focus. So yeah, as far as interacting with the community, it's probably more important now than ever. School cannot be the ivory tower. It has to be embedded within the community, helping the community, and frankly, we need just as much help from the community as they might need from us.
So I'm gonna say ditto, and I'm not gonna repeat, but completely agree with both of you. What I wanna add to that is that connection to the employer, to the students, so the students understand, and I appreciate Michelle's plea, like, they're the entry level trying to figure it out, right? Young, trying to figure out what it means to really work and to be a good and productive employee. So I'll second that. But I also will say, as being an employer, I'm maybe in government, but I'm still the employer, right? And knowing what to do with the interns, right? Or the work-based learning folks, like, I think it's always, we say, industry here, please take our students, and then they don't know what, and some of them do, some of them are like, okay, and then some of them don't, and then some of them just don't know what to do with them, and so the students end up being the one that's like cleaning the shop floor instead of learning how to do the things that we want them to learn how to start getting from. So I think that that's another piece on top of what they have.
That's where Business Alliance comes in.
And that's where Business Alliance comes in. We actually are working to build out in partnership with business and industry, and Michelle and her crew, and then some of the school districts across the state, they're doing a really good job at work-based learning, building out some resources for business and industry partners that will be streamlined statewide. I'm hoping we'll be able to roll that out in the next 6 months or so. And then we're also doing it on the opposite side to provide streamlined resources to educators on how to set these relationships up, how to support their students in the work-based learning space, and really trying to make this process as streamlined, as coordinated as possible, and ensure that all of our school districts have the same resources and some support to get this taken care of across the state. And we're also looking for funding to really do the same thing in higher education as well. So that is a lot. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of good things going on, and there's a lot of work that we need to do moving forward. I think workforce will continue to be an issue for the state of Wyoming. So I will open it up for questions before I hand it over to our panelists for closing remarks.
So my name is Bethany Scheitler. I am with Disability in Wyoming County, and we work with students with disabilities, mainly students with an IEP, on employment skills. So we'll go in, we contract with the school districts in Wyoming County to provide soft skill training within the school district, and then we do work experience placements. So we work with the businesses and the school, and we also do some summer employment partnerships for those students, and it's been fantastic. It's really helped those students gain skills that they would not have normally had. They get to try out different career, different jobs, and to find out what they like and don't like. And it's been fantastic. So I was just wondering, is there any funding opportunity to help us reach more of those students?
Yeah, so actually UNT One actually has just created put those courses together in what's called a program of study, so that your district is able to access Perkins funds for some of those opportunities for those students, as well as professional development for the instructor, and then some additional innovative grant opportunities as well. But UNT County #1 is doing it really well, and Mr. Rigby really worked hard on that program before he left. There also, I don't know if any of you are aware of this, but the University of Wyoming now has a program, a college program for students with disabilities that is really amazing. And I think they're going to have their first cohort living on campus as college students this upcoming fall. They just completed their first cohort, and that's exciting that we have a lot of post-secondary opportunities being created for our special needs, our students with special needs and disabilities. The university program,
I've got the University of Wyoming Foundation is one that I'm working with interns with disability, but also those without disability coming in and helping us with next year's events.
Yeah, but there's actually a college program now. It's through the University of Wyoming for students with disabilities. So yeah, and I'm sorry I don't know the name of it. It was just featured in one of their magazines recently.
Any other questions? All right, I'll turn it over to you, Dale, to give us some closing remarks. Anything you'd like to add?
I guess I'll leave the fast before.
Yeah.
So one of the things that we're more than happy to do is that people want to just meet with us, talk with us, buy lunch, and things if you're interested for your industry, what we can do for your industry, what we can do for your business. At the moment, one of the things that we've been put over is the Startup Challenge, which is an entrepreneurial contest, if you will. Start your own business. There's some reward money that goes with that. That's just started, but you can still get in on that if you'd like. The final competition isn't until November. All right, so as far as helping people build their own businesses with some expert help, not me, but there's some expert help along the way, we can certainly do that. But if you're looking for employees of a particular type, and here's the thing, I have to be quite blunt here, is that if you need 1 or 2 employees, come talk to me. But I'm going to have to coordinate with your industry. right? Because we do have a minimum number of students we can bring through a class. And the fact is that I need that to be somewhat sustainable, unless it's a quick class. Right? If it's financial awareness or something like that, yeah, come on down, talk to me. We can probably put something together for a 1, 2, 3 day class. But if it's something that you want long-term, then that's a larger discussion. But we're more than happy to have it. And we don't see everything. Right? I admit I study every morning. I look at the news. I look what's happening in industry. I have my AI bot pick out engineering news for me every morning and put it up on my desktop, right? So I do pay attention to those things, but it's a somewhat narrow focus, and I don't see everything, right? So if you have something that you want to bring to our attention, please don't hesitate to call. We'd love to talk to you.
Well, I think it's going to be a little bit different. My closing thoughts is that if you are looking for a career change, or you are interested in teaching, or have ever been interested in teaching, we have multiple ways right now in Wyoming to become a teacher. That some involve formal education, some don't. Some of them, many of them allow you to be site-bound where you are and not have to pick up and move anywhere. So if you're looking for a career change, I would be more than happy to talk to you about some of the ways that you might be able to end up in a classroom. Out of our nearly 500 CTE teachers in Wyoming, about a third of those come from business and industry on what's called a professional industry certification permit. We also, just so you are aware, we have students, we had one district alone, this recent semester when they did their schedules for next fall, have 900 requests for a CTE course in woods and construction that they can't honor because they don't have teachers. So if you are wanting to teach CTE, please visit with me. If you're wanting to teach anything, please visit with me, because there are opportunities and ways for you to become a teacher without you ever having to leave your community to do that. And if you know somebody who's recently retired and is looking for maybe teaching part-time, there are those opportunities in school districts as well. Just like Dale mentioned, that they have those opportunities at the community college level. So please spread the word. We also have a big Troops to Teachers program. If you know some veterans who have been trained in the military, a lot of times those skills are transferable to a teaching career as well. So, but you have so much to share as a community member, and it's really vital that you help us invest, and invest your time and talents in our future generation, because they are the future of Wyoming. And especially in small communities, those communities may go by the wayside if we don't get students who are wanting to start businesses or continue businesses there and want to live there and start their families there. So help us help you and spread the word.
So I wanted to say a couple things. So to wrap it up, one is that I see such great opportunity in Wyoming. We are so small and so connected, and if I don't know someone, I can usually ask somebody to my left or right, and they know somebody.
1 degree of separation.
Exactly. And so there's that opportunity to really, as we think about the workforce and the supports and training with workforce, that is right around the corner. We didn't talk about this, and we don't have anyone from like the Department of Workforce Services up here with us, but they too, I've been watching you out of the corner of my eye, that they have a ton of opportunities if you're looking for supports, if you're an employer, if you are a student looking for internships, if you are looking for apprenticeships, they can point you and support you as well. There's lots and lots of opportunities, and all you have to do is, if you don't know, ask the person next to you, or you can ask ChatGPT, I don't care. But I think there are lots and lots of opportunities. I think your question that you started us with was alignment, and that's where we have such a great opportunity to make some amazing things happen as we continue to work together and align the opportunities that we have.
Thank you all so much. I hope that this panel helped as you're looking at funding opportunities and building those coalitions and collaborations to really pull your organizations, your communities, maybe it's your region, maybe it's the whole state together to solve whatever problem you're trying to solve. And you know, as we see these federal funding opportunities come out, and I mean, I'd say all opportunities, not just federal, folks really, they know that success is driven by collaboration and support, and they're requiring folks to work together. And so, like Laurel said, you know, look to the person to your left, look to the person to your right, and try to build that collaboration. And we're happy to help support that through the Business Alliance, through WIP, and all of these folks up here are also happy to support that. We've got our regional workforce services offices that are also happy to support that work. And so we will stick around for you know, conversation afterwards, but I appreciate you joining us this afternoon.